So this is the combat station. I'm your host, Ty Matthews, and today we have a very special guest, Stitch Duran. How you doing, Stitch?
I'm good, doing good, Ty. Thanks for having me on, brother. Looks like you're one of the young guys that are up and coming, huh?
Yeah, mate, trying to make it to the top.
There we go.
People like you, proper helping out the channel. So thank you for your time.
Of course, it's always important. I understand.
So I'm gonna start off with obviously this weekend you were in Fury's corner as his Cutman. How was the atmosphere in the building?
The atmosphere was high, no doubt about it. And it was fun. I worked with Vladimir Klitschko when he fought Anthony Joshua in front of 90,000 people in Wembley Stadium, and that was loud and buzzing. But this one here, the energy level was just real high for both of them. You heard chants for Deontay Wilder, and the fans, I think, took the side of Tyson Fury. So it was electrifying.
Were you impressed with Fury's performance this weekend?
Yeah, I was. I've been impressed with him ever since he beat Vladimir Klitschko, and I got to understand his style of fighting, and his style of fighting is like nobody else that's around. It's his own style.
Obviously, he went down during the fight. What were you thinking when he got dropped twice?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, Ty, but I always prepare for worst case scenario. And give me a second, guys. I always prepare for the worst case scenario. And, I've seen guys get dropped. I keep my composure, but I look at his face, his eyes when he sits down. And, but before the fight started, I sat down with Tyson and I told him that every round I'm going to keep ice on him because I want to minimize the swelling. That's because I know it's going to be a toe-to-toe fight. I know they're going to be cracking each other, right? So I did it. As soon as I sat down, I kept that ice on him and put it on his head and the back and just ever try to get his senses back. But he responded real good. And at the end of the fight, as I'm saying goodbye to him, he thanked me and gave me a hug and a kiss and said, thanks for putting ice on me, but I told him, I want you to walk out as handsome as you walked in. So I think we did that.
Where would you rate that? And obviously you've been a part of so many fights. Would you rate that highly in the best fights you've been a part of?
Yeah, I've been real blessed for when Vladimir Klitschko, like I say, fought Anthony Joshua, they were saying that was the fight of the decade. Well, I think this one just might have surpassed it only because they clubbed each other and they dropped each other and you just didn't know who was going to win until Tyson Fury knocked out Deontay Wilder. It was that kind of fight. But I expected that kind of fight. I always prepare for the worst case scenario.
You obviously mentioned Anthony Joshua, Klitschko, and Tyson Fury Wilder as some of the best fights you've been a part of. Any other highlights you have of fights you've been a part of?
Yeah, man, I've got tons of them. You ask me about a fight or a fighter I work with, I'll probably tell you a good story with them. But they're all great historical moments that I've been involved with in boxing and MMA and kickboxing, and now I'm doing the bare knuckle fights. So I get to see the heart and soul of every fighter, and that in itself is a blessing.
Has there any fighter you've had a special relationship with?
Hey, give me a real quick second. I got my guy that's calling me. Hold on. Mario, estoy haciendo una entrevista. ¿Me das como una hora? Okay, hecho. Bye. Sorry, my man.
All right, man. It's all right.
The guy wanted to meet with me today. Anyway, yeah, so I always prepare for worst case scenario. And, it's a good thing that we came up on top. It just shows, it was a great fight. And both fighters, received the accolades that they're getting. It came to being two warriors against each other. So bless their hearts, both of them.
What fighter have you been closest with working with, or you have the fondest memories with?
Good question. Very, very good question. I think when it comes to boxing, Vladimir Klitschko, I had a great relationship with him. MMA, I think I have to choose Josh Barnett. These are special moments that, I treat them all like they're my children, number one, but they're just special moments that kind of bond you a little bit closer than other guys. And, I'll tell you a quick story with Vladimir when he fought Anthony Joshua, the relationship that we have, he's like, 6'6" and, 200 and something massive pounds of muscle. he's had a lot of confidence in me for the 10, 12 years I've worked with him. And the day before the fight at the weigh-ins, we're going over the fight and all that. And I put my hand on his shoulder and I say, Vladimir, don't worry about nothing tomorrow. I'm going to take care of you like you're my son, because I know psychology is extremely important for a fighter, especially the night before the fight when they're tossing and turning and they're thinking about the fight and all that. So I always try to relax them in one way or the other. And right before Michael Buffer's doing the announcement in the middle of the ring, 90,000 Brits and, millions of people around the world, I'm putting the final Vaseline on Vladimir, and we're this far apart. And he says, "You could call me son." And that was a moment that was just between him and I. And that's probably one of the highlights of my whole lifetime. I mean, so many good stories, but that one falls up on top.
Are you still in contact with Vladimir and Barnett? Are you in contact with all these fighters you've worked with?
No, I'm not. We all go our own ways, but when and if we run into each other, it's always that special moment. And I think the last time I saw Vladimir was I did a show in Germany maybe 6 months ago, and we visited for a while. And I asked Vladimir, I said, "Vladimir, I have to ask you this question. That moment when you said you could call me son, what was going through your head?" So he says, "Stitch, there's very few people in my life there's very few people that I trust with my life, and you're one of them." And I thought that was a nice compliment, but that's, it's kind of respect I get, Ty.
What was the wildest fight you've ever been a part of as well? Is there any fight where you've just been watching it back and forth and you've just been on the edge of your seat?
Yeah, I think in MMA, there's been tons of them. I just can't even pick one off the top of my head, but yeah, there's been fights sometimes when I've just jumped up as a cut man, and we as cut men are supposed to keep our composers, right? Our composure. But yeah, I got to think about that one. That's a good question. Yeah, some pretty good questions.
Thanks, mate. Do you reckon you'll be doing this? How long do you reckon you'll be a cut man for? Do you reckon you'll be doing this forever?
Yeah, forever is probably right. As long as the mechanics. That's the one thing, when the mechanics start slipping, then it's time to pass the torch on to somebody else. And but I'm not ready for that right now. I feel real good. Saturday, outside of working with Tyson Fury, I worked with 3 other fights. So out of all the fights that night, I worked 4 of them. And I have another show this coming week in San Diego, and the week after in Atlanta, Georgia, and then the week after in New York, and then the week after back here in Vegas, and then in November 20th, I'm going to Dubai for a week for fights. So got a busy schedule.
You've been in Creed 1 and Creed 2. I have to ask, are you going to be in Creed 3?
Well, I didn't want to get too far in advance, but yeah, I'll tell you the story of how it happened is, first of all, going back to Creed 2, it's I'm telling Michael Jordan how, because every day I'm sitting there for 6 weeks, I wrap his hands every day before we go out and start filming. So it's just him and I and his buddy, and then we're talking. But I'm telling him how proud I was of him and Tessa Thompson and Ryan Coogler, who wrote and directed the first Creed, and Stephen Cappell, the director, how proud I was of them. And he says, "Stitch, we went from being actors to writers, producers, and directors." And he looks at me and says, I'm directing Creed 3, and you're with me as long as you want. So I always kept that in mind, right? Well, I only live 20 minutes from the MGM. I live here in Las Vegas. And I was driving to the arena for the press conference for Tyson Fury and Wilder. I think it was on Wednesday. And I get a call from Nicholas Stern, the executive producer of Creed. And yeah, we're on, brother. They're going to start filming hopefully in January in Atlanta. And they just wanted to see what my time frame was like. And I told them, whatever time frame you need, I got, so looks like I'll be doing Creed 3.
I feel I have to ask this. Was Dana White ever your friend?
Yeah. It's funny. I thought we were, anybody that's, there's different types. That's a good question. And it's fun. But, there's different types of friendships, right? And the Dana White that I knew is the guy that I knew in the gym, not when we went out and had beers and all that, but, we broke sweat with guys in the gym and as trainers. And in all fairness, Dana says he was a boxing guy, but he was training the housewives and the executives from these casinos and actually making more money than us. But when it came to actually working A-level fights, I don't think he ever got his license for that. But I considered him a friend, guy, associate. He's the one that brought me in, but I used to see him all the time and we used to say hi. And, there's friends that you have that aren't your immediate friends, but they're within your circle. You see what I'm saying? And he was one of those friends. But he's the one that brought me into the UFC and helped me get to where I'm at, no doubt about it. And he's also the one that let me go and got me to where I'm at right now. So I can't complain.
Do you miss working in the UFC at all?
No, you know what? I don't. I've been blessed to be working a lot of boxing. I mean, a lot of boxing. Since this COVID kicked in, we couldn't do anything. I've done like 40 something shows in the bubble within a year. So I've been real blessed to be working. But yeah, I've worked the bare knuckle fights, and then I was doing MMA. I was working with Bellator and PFL and Rising in Japan. So I was working all these shows. But right now, I'm glad to be working closer to home. And I miss the guys. A lot of the guys, they're we run into each other, like say it's like a big fraternity, fighters and trainers, and I saw Mark up at the fights, and we hugged each other like we were friends, So and we are, but no, we're doing fine. I love doing what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a lot of these Triller shows or these YouTube shows with the KSIs and the Anson Gibbs, and the Jake Pauls and the Logan Pauls. So I'm happy doing this.
How do you feel about all these YouTube shows? How do you feel about celebrities getting in there boxing each other? Do you agree with it?
You know what? I don't mind. Number one, you have to understand, Ty, that what we do is a business, and boxing is a business, and you have to kind of make your adjustments as the generations make their adjustments, right? So right now, social media is big, and I just didn't know. I think people in boxing didn't realize how big it really is. Guys like you guys, but the zone, when they did the first KSI Logan Paul fight, I thought it was very ingenious because they work on a subscription base. And actually, I didn't even know who KSI was. I didn't know who Logan Paul were, but they had like 20 million followers. To me, it's insane. But for the zone to have gotten a small percentage of these guys, their followers, to watch them fight each other, they made their money plus tenfold. So on that aspect, it was good. To work the fights, yeah, I enjoyed it. Working with KSI was a total pleasure. And, I saw his transformation from, I guess he's a rapper, to actually becoming a fighter. And like I did with Michael B. Jordan, I did to KSI, as I knighted them both. And I told him, you guys are representing our sport at the highest level in what you're doing. So yeah, it was fun. I'm glad I've done them, and it's good for these guys to come in, and and it's still a hurt business, Ty. So for these guys to have the guts to come out, and that's why I say with Anson Gibbs, because KSI is more of an athlete. Anson wasn't that much of an athlete when I met him, but he showed the heart of a lion, and he turned out to be a young Mike Tyson. And I think if we would have had more time with him, experience would have definitely gotten in his favor. So a lot of respect to him.
So I'm gonna end this with a very serious question.
Sure.
So obviously in boxing, the fights that we want to see, they don't happen till too late away. You and Dana White, will we ever see that fight? Because obviously you're 69 in your prime. He's 50 something in his prime. Will we see that fight?
Well, maybe by videos, the way you guys are, right? And you could be the one controlling me. But nah, you know what, man, that's, and I'm glad nobody's ever brought that up. But that's pretty cool. But nah, I'm way beyond that, bro. I've been real blessed in doing what I'm doing. And, there's a documentary that's being filmed on my life, and I'm working all these fights, and, I'm doing another movie with, so how can I complain? And, people have asked, what would you do? What are you going to do when you see Dana White? Man, I'll shake his hand and thank him for letting me go, because it's the best thing ever happened to me. And I represented the the people that were having unfair practices. As a matter of fact, before we go, I'll tell you, I've gotten tons of encouragement, support from all over the world. Wesley Snipes, after the Creed movie, comes up and shakes my hand and says, "Hey, UFC did you wrong." Plain and simple. People all over the world stopped me. But one of the best moments I had was Luis, which is one of Anderson Silva's trainers in the UFC, comes up to me when we're doing a show at the MGM in a bubble boxing show. He comes up to me during lunch and he says, "Stitch," he says, "we, the trainers, the fighters, we thank you for speaking up because we couldn't." And that said the whole thing to what I did. Is me growing up as a farm worker, and my parents were fighting for unfair practices of the farm workers. You know, we all used to drink out of one metal pail and one dirty cup. And, you know, you look at standards now, you know, they had pesticides that they were spraying as we were working. And so we're trying to get things done the right way. And, you know, I spoke up and I'm glad I did.
Well, Stitch, you're a legend. If I ever need a cut man, I know who to come to.
All right, my man. And if they ever do a video game of me versus Dana, then you could be the guy on the controls. How's that?
Sorry, mate. I'm 100% picking you.
All
But
right.
anyway, thank you
man.
for your time, and this means a lot.
All right. And good luck to yourself, huh?
You too, mate. Anyway, this has been the Combat Station, and we are out.
Good job, young man.